Hi, good morning, Marisela. How are you? It's good to see you.
Hi, good morning, Hugo. I'm good. It's so nice to meet you.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you're with me in Destino today. I really wanted to celebrate and talk about the work that you've done. But before we do that, can I ask you some rapid fire questions?
Sure thing.
Okay. So I wanted to know a movie that you admire that you've always thought like, man, I would have loved to be part of this crew or just been a fly on the wall while they were making it.
I think I always go back to the movie Amelie. It has
Yeah.
such expressive photography and the colors are really amazing. And the story is just so wonderful and very relatable and I love all the magical realism within it. So that's always been a favorite of mine.
I always say that when people say they haven't seen it, I'm like, what? You haven't seen Amelie? Okay, we got to put it on.
Yeah.
When you were younger, what's the first movie that you remember going to see at the movie theater?
Oh my gosh. That was probably The Secret Garden with my grandparents.
Oh, wow. Cool.
It was a while back, and I think Roger Deakins shot that actually. Uh, but I just remember like the garden and like the older style like house they lived in, and it just felt very transportative and magical, and
Yeah.
that's something that kind of keeps me coming back and excited about different projects, and I don't know, it just feels really special when you get to feel fully immersed or like connecting with different characters. It's always fun to feel that way. So.
Yeah, I think that's when we all get the bug.
Mhm.
Um, and lastly, can you name a filmmaker that you admire and that you've always thought about collaborating with and why?
Oh, like in history or currently?
I'll take history or any present day, whatever you want.
Oh my gosh. That's tricky because I feel like the project and the person behind it can be very different. Um, I think it would be really fun to work on. Gosh, I go back to oh gosh, what is the name? Luc Besson, I think is really fantastic and I also love sci-fi. So something like I think The Fifth Element would be so much fun to work on
Yeah.
and it's so different from anything I've ever done. Because there's action and tons of VFX and like I think the comedy is one of the funnest parts of that project. So I think that would be a very wild collaboration.
For sure. Well, I would love to get started just with your name and what you do.
Sure. My name is Mariscela Beatriz Mendez, and I'm a director of photography based in Los Angeles, California.
Your last project was titled The Middle. I just wanted to know how you got involved with this project.
Sure. We shot the middle back in the fall of 2023. Um, And I had met the director, Sylvia Ray, through
Mhm.
a few fellowships that we had kind of been in together previously. And through that, we just ended up having a lot of the same circle of friends and became friends through different networking events and then just having shared friends. And so we had known that we had wanted to work together, but timing just didn't work out for whatever reason on previous opportunities.
Mhm.
She finally had the middle that she was doing independently,
Mhm.
shooting in her hometown in Barstow, California, and I was available. And so just a really, so that's kind of the genesis of that.
And for you, what would be one of the scenes in that project that really stood out?
I think for the middle, one of the scenes that stands out for me the most is definitely the campfire scene,
Mhm.
the canyon that we filmed at. Not only was it the most technically challenging in the entire film, it also is where I guess the heart of the project is and
Mhm.
the catalyst for everything within the story. And being on an independently produced project that has the indie budgets that go along with that, doing a night exterior, in a place with like you have to bring in your own power and everything, and if you want to see something on the screen, you have to add light to it. And so we had different layers of things happening photographically with the lighting side, so that we could see the characters in the foreground and then also the deeper background with the canyon walls. So it was a large space to light at once, and then still having to stay in tune with the emotion of the story and staying with the characters, but still feeling all of the elements around them. Was a big challenge. And then we were also single camera on this one, and so um, that does have its benefits to only having one camera and one thing to focus on at a time.
Mhm.
Um, but with big party scenes, and stunts, and then a little bit of like special effects, it does become quite a challenge. But I think one of the things I love the most about working with Sylvia, is that she's so prepared as a director and so collaborative. And her background is also as an editor. And because she's been doing this for a while, we just had a really amazing team supporting us out there. And then my team came out because we were filming this at a time during the strikes. And so a lot of
Oh.
folks were available, just because there had been a decline in work because of that. And and so I think the project benefited from like a lot of things coming together. And then obviously having the support of the vendors, to so that we could have the gear that we needed to do a proper job. Um,
And how did you guys overcome the challenges of that fire scene?
well, I think it's, part of the challenge with any uh independent short project, or even a long form one, where time and budget are always the determining factor for everything. A lot of it comes down to preparation, and that's also something that I really love working with my directors. Is a lot of this is done in the prep, and then when it comes time to being on set, you're really just kind of executing everything. You're in the moment, and then you're kind of making adjustments based on things that, maybe kind of come your way for whatever reason. But we had a little bit of previs for that was done. We had a shot list, we knew the schedule. We knew that if something shifted, that we knew what we could kind of get rid of shot wise, in order to kind of compress things and like make our day. Um, and so it's just about being prepared and then kind of staying in the moment to pivot, or to find something when it did present itself. And just, trying to work as fast as possible so that you can have, she has as many options as needed in the edit to kind of make all the pieces fit together. But I think it was also really interesting, and I know this is not my department, but for Sylvia, it was really wonderful watching her work, because she had a cast that had a range of experience levels. And so our main cast, our top, or so sorry, let me say that again. So our main characters in the film are very seasoned working TV actors. Then we had a few other actors that were a little bit newer or younger. And then I think we also had a cast member who had never acted before. And so I'm so proud of her. And for our casting director, Jasmine Gutierrez, finding all these people, and it's just a testament to her talent and her work, because it all feels seamless, and they feel like they've known each other for years when you watch the short, and they literally just met like the day before.
Yeah, well, for me, especially working on a project, collaborating with everybody else and seeing everybody kind of flip the switch from being like friends, to professionals, and seeing them in their element is very inspiring, and it does make you want to bring your A game and service the project as well. But what are the other departments that you collaborated with outside of the director?
Well, I think as as the cinematographer on set, you and the AD are really like at the center of how the set runs, how it flows, managing time. And as a DP, like you are really managing three departments, which is camera, grip, and electric. And so those are the teams that I manage directly and oversee everything. But then in addition to that, you're working with the AD department about just trying to, figure out like, okay, I need a stand-in, now, and then let's bring cast in five. So just to kind of check everything. Um, we also make sure to look at the boards from the costumer, just to make sure that like, for example, in the middle we have these brown canyon walls in the background, and if they pick a brown that feels very similar to the walls, there's not quite enough color separation. So just kind of keeping track of knowing how that layers within the project. And then in addition to that, if we are filming, let's say in a space with the production designer, um, understanding how big the fire pit is, how much light is that going to give us, what color is the truck that they're sitting on, and just different things, just making sure that it fits within the vision and that there's nothing that won't work for camera in that respect. So I was very aware of like what picture cars we're working with, what colors are an option for us. This also came to play for when the cast gets into the car. And so knowing what that looks like, what to look for. And then we did have a car mount on that one because there is a quick moment where they drive away from the scene. Um, and so knowing like how we were going to rig to the car, how to protect the car in the process, and then knowing like what lensing we're using, um, is all extremely important to making sure that the day flows correctly. And then it's also just providing support. The grip department does so much more than just setting up lights and stands. They often provide camera support as well, and oftentimes support to the production design team whenever needed. And then obviously with power on a smaller project, we're also providing power to production, craft services. So it's kind of a little bit of everything. But I would say that my favorite departments that I get to collaborate with is 100% the production designer. I think without them, it's very hard to make something look nice because you can, light it all day long, but if it's just a very simple white wall that like doesn't tell the story, it also influences the viewer's experience. And then, I have to have additional considerations for like, how do we add shape to this, or is this intentional? And so I always love collaborating with the production designer because they provide so much texture and life. And I feel like sometimes I can be 80% of the job is like just having a really good production designer. Um, but it's wonderful. I really enjoy the collaborative process, and that's one of the reasons why I switched over um from initially wanting to be a still photographer to a cinematographer for that, all of the added challenges that come with it and keeping you on your toes. And every project is different. Every experience is different because it's, a different set of people from project to project. But also mostly for the collaboration because I don't know, it's interesting and fun and um, every day can sometimes be a different challenge, and I just feel like it always keeps me on my toes, for sure.
Well, what are the things that you look for that you rely on from the team to bring out your best work? How do you prepare for a project?
Oh gosh, I mean, I'm only as good as the people that I'm able to hire and bring on to a project. So having the right team is everything. Because we take things for granted, like focus. But there's someone who's dedicated just for that, you know? Um, and it's really, for me, again, it's a lot of stuff I do is in the prep. I try to really clearly communicate what I need. Um, always do some sort of lookbook or have references for what I'm looking for compositionally, lighting wise, especially color palette wise. I get very specific with those things, and that's also in collaborating with Sylvia and making sure that her vision is constantly honored throughout the entire thing. Um, and I think the other, in addition to, the preparation part and just communicating what the needs are in advance, it's also having, I think also part of the team is also vendors as well and having really good relationships with vendors, because, the gear that is needed is very expensive. And when you're on like a scrappier budget, you kind of need friends, friends and vendors to support you because you don't have the same budget as like these really big commercials that can just throw money at a problem and you kind of get most of what you need, if not all of it. But definitely having, I think on the middle, the project, the camera package was serviced through the Cine, which is owned by Bianca Halpern, who is a dear friend. And without their support, like we were able to like have the right camera that helped us, especially for the night exteriors. Really amazing glass and lenses. Um, and it's just invaluable because oftentimes the tools are extremely helpful, especially with being able to work on the Sony Venice.
Mhm.
For that one was such a game changer for us because with the dual native ISO, the camera's a lot more sensitive at night. And so we could do a lot more on those night exteriors with a lot less light, which then meant, you know, I don't have to order 10,000 lights, although it felt like we had that. And then it's also much more manageable for the crew as well, so that while it was very challenging to, put lights in these rock structures and have things that all over the place because you have, probably, I don't even know, like maybe what, 200 feet between like the actor in the foreground and then like the canyon walls in the background. It's a lot of ground to cover. So, um, because of the high sensitivity of the camera, we didn't need like these massive, massive lights everywhere. Um,
Oh, well, congratulations to you and the team. I mean, I was able to see from a glimpse of the project. I mean, everything looks so great and like it was so slice of life, and you guys were able to do all these things that we're talking about. You were able to accomplish it with such a limited resource, and that's like props to you and everybody on that team. But I'm really glad that you brought up commercials because I was gonna ask you about your transition into animation and how was that like?
Um, yeah, so I recently had the opportunity. It was a very unique opportunity. I had no idea that this was gonna like sorry, say that again. I recently had a very unique opportunity through a fellowship that I had been in quite some time ago with the Hola Mexico Film Festival and the Tomorrow's Filmmakers Today program. One of their major partners was McDonald's of Southern California, and they had reached out to the alumni in the program for pitches, because they needed a commercial for McDonald's to screen at the festival before all of the films, since they were one of the premier sponsors. And so they were looking for pitches for concepts, and I'm not a had not directed anything prior to that. And my animation experience was really as a cinematographer, and most of that was, we'll do the live action component and have a green screen, and then like the animators will come in later and replace that with animation. My other animation experience prior to that was a 2D hand-drawn live action hybrid project where it was a short film called Mosca, and we had a live action character in a space paired with a 2D animated character. And so with that, we did all the live action stuff, and which was very familiar, like kind of normal for me. And then it was just understanding the relationship of the main character to the animated character and basically matching the animatic because with animation, it's a very different process. It's kind of the reverse in certain ways because you do the storyboards and then you do the animatic. And the animatic is the edit, like to the second. And so whereas in live action you shoot everything and then you figure out the pacing after the fact, it's the reverse of that in this. And so I got a small taste of it, but the animation was done by another team after the fact. And so with this one, we got to pitch concepts. Mine was one of two projects that was selected, and I did not know really what to expect. I did have some friends in animation. I did a bunch of research trying to figure out, what the workflow is like, talking to different producers. And then when it came time that we got greenlit for the project, I had the right team to support me. I had a producer who was both Carlos Mendez, my tocayo, um, who was also worked on Mosca with me and had both live action animation experience. And then we reached out to my friend Juan Luis Bravo, who is also in the fellowship with me, to do the storyboards. And storyboards are very familiar because we have those in live action. And so I already had this understanding that with the animatic, like that's the edit. And we knew we had to do this in 27 seconds because 3 seconds belong to a McDonald's like bumper at the end. And so we just took this concept and had to do a very fast animatic. And then from there, with Juan Luis, the storyboard artist, and from there, he recommended his favorite animators. And so we were able to find an animation supervisor who was able to assemble a team. And we basically created a schedule. And then we had a very tight timeline for that. I think it was a 2 week turnaround to do a 30-second animated spot. And so I think, what was really interesting is that having been on set with so many directors, you pick up a lot of things along the way, even though you're not the person in that particular role. But also as a cinematographer, I already had the language because animators, what was really was really great is animators, they know lensing, they know lighting, they know contrast and composition. And because the story was inspired by my childhood of playing loteria with my family as a kid, um, and then just being a visual person and having to know what I want beforehand, all of those skills translated into the animation side. And so I was very nervous going into this because I'm like, I'm not a director. I don't know anything about animation. But it turns out you kind of secretly do have those skill sets. You just haven't done it yet. And so it was a pretty seamless process because the animators were so wonderful and so collaborative and had really great ideas of giving this project so much personality that the transition from being a live action DP to being an animation director was so much smoother than I thought it was going to be because we all spoke the same language. And the other thing too with the tight timeline is that as a DP, I've had years of experience of, staying on time, staying on budget, and knowing how to pivot and having a plan B if something isn't working. And so as we were going through this process, I was able to approve things very quickly so that we could stay on schedule. And then when we had to shift, that can always be frustrating, I think, but because it's not something that's new, like we always pivot and shift with things, it's like, okay, well, you know, you understand that you have to pivot and then you figure out a creative solution. And oftentimes it just works out for the best, you kind of discover something else in the process. And we definitely experienced that in this one for sure. But it was really wonderful, to be very honest. It was so special to be able to create something that was so deeply personal and involved my family, and like the characters. The abuelita character looks exactly like my grandma, and the mom character is styled after my mom. And we spoke about family portraits, because every Latino household I go into, there's always portraits on the walls, from quinceañeras to weddings to baby photos to, random things, newspaper clippings, all that stuff. And so, I worked with the background artist, who is essentially, we had a more, because we were an independent project with a very tight timeline, some of the roles were combined. And so with animation, for example, in this project specifically, our background person was kind of essentially the production designer, because they were just working on the backgrounds and color palettes. And on larger animation projects, there are production designers, but for our purposes, everybody was kind of wearing multiple hats. Um, and so it was a lot of the same experience, just kind of done at different times. And so, for example, when we were doing the character design with our animation supervisor, that was the casting, that was the wardrobe. That's a little bit of performance as well. How expressive are they? What do their eyes look like when they're surprised and happy, and things like that. So, um, and then with the animation part, that was new to me because wasn't exactly sure how that was going to happen. And then the other thing that also was a very easy translation was props. We had a lot of props in this project, from the beans on the table to the loteria cards. And with that, we had like a completely custom artwork for the original loteria set. And so getting to work with our props animator for that was just really special, because his name is Napoleon Chavez, and he also grew up playing loteria with his family and understood how nuanced everything was. So it was just felt it, because of my past experience and being able to observe so many directors, and having a little bit of experience on the animation side, made it pretty seamless, with the jargon and getting it across the finish line. But it was very special.
Yeah. Well, with the dialogue that you've said about having a lot of support and being able to rely on those friends and professionals, what would you say is the best way to network and meet these kind of people and bring them into your life and projects?
I think, networking can be a very scary thing for folks. It kind of, so it's a little for me. I'm someone who's pretty shy, but I have developed that muscle over time. And if anyone else is feeling the same way, I would say my advice is, the more you do something, the easier it gets. And it's just about being brave and showing up and getting there. And all you need to do is kind of make one friend. And then eventually, when you go to events, you'll start to see a lot of the same people, and it'll feel a lot less like intimidating. But I do think, community is something that has been extremely helpful in terms of my career, and meeting folks, and finding those really special collaborators. Um, and so it is about going out. But I think for me, I try to, it's not like, oh, I gotta meet this person, and it's very transactional. And, sometimes it can feel that way, and sometimes it is. But for me, it's about like human connection, and you get to meet people at these events, but there could be 50 people, 100 people, and that can be very overwhelming. And I think for me, it's about making that initial connection. But if people go for drinks afterwards, or if someone's like, hey, let's get a coffee, like that's when the connection really happens when it's one-on-one, when it's in a more intimate setting where you really get to know someone. Because I think that's, what it's about at the end of the day is just connecting with folks on a very genuine level. And then that translates in the workplace and on screen, you have these more genuine stories. You have a better working relationship on set. And so for me, yes, I try to go meet people at different events, whether it's through an organization or someone's birthday party or, like a union, a mixer through the union or something. It's while there is the intention to meet folks to expand your network, because that's really where a lot of the work comes from, either through direct connections or referrals are also really important as well in the industry. I think it's just really about a genuine human connection with whomever you're getting to meet and finding the right spaces to allow for that.
Yeah, I can definitely agree that a lot of the times those people that are my friends and support is all because, I was actually inspired by their work and like I wanted these people in my life. And from then on, I was able to rely on them for, let's say, just feedback or, hey, I'm planning on this animated project. Like, what do you think my next step is? And
Absolutely.
that's a big part of just being able to choose who your people are because you're able to recognize who's going to be able to support you the best.
And it's also, it's also like if you get stuck in something, having those mentors, having those your peers, who are also DPs, who understand like the scrappiness or they know like what it's like to work at a higher level, being able to ask those questions, and have those conversations with them are extremely beneficial as you grow in your career, or if you have a very specific challenge, there's multiple friends that I can reach out to that are DPs and be like, hey, I saw you did something that was underwater. I have an underwater thing coming up. Like, this is what I'm up against. This is what I'm thinking. Like, how did you do this for your project or what would you recommend? And so, you know, that for me has been extremely invaluable in terms of community is not just finding the folks who can hire you. And yes, as a DP, other cinematographers can hire me. But I think it's just also having, making friends and just being able to support each other is just a mutual and having mutual respect and yeah, because there's also, ups and downs, I think, and being able to lean on your peers for support when you need it, whether it's like technical or emotional, I think is also extremely important because with this industry and with our jobs, it's not like a straight path. There's many different ways to become a cinematographer. Um, and, I think it's just you get by and you survive by your community. And so that's something that I would definitely advocate for as with whatever space you're in, if you're a student, making friends with your peers, because those are the folks that you're going to come up with. And so it's important to have those allies in your life.
I totally agree. Well, thank you, Marisela. I really appreciate the chat and I hope to see more of your work soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.